myself from behind the wheel to get out the window. The windows are down. The truck hits the water just slams me back, and we just like sinking fast. Like 60 feet at the bottom of the Black Sea, stuck in the mud.
We do a smaller movie for, you know, $10, $12 million. I remember I did a couple of things, one called The Transporter.
Oh, yeah.
And when I did that, I mean, they literally they couldn't afford a stunt double. So it was like I did almost every little piece that I could do.
He never complained. He never pointed fingers. He never named names. But behind the calm stare and the razor-sharp discipline, Jason Statham was carrying something darker than any stunt he ever performed. A resentment he buried under decades of professionalism. Hollywood called him the most reliable action star alive. What they didn't know was that reliability came from surviving 3 directors who pushed him harder and more dangerously than anyone should ever push an actor. He almost quit once, he almost died twice, and he left 3 sets with grudges. These aren't rumors, these aren't fan theories. 3 films, 3 clashes, 3 scars he still carries. And after years of silence, the truth is finally rising to the surface. This is what happened when Jason Statham faced the directors he hated working with. And the first name on that list? The one that set everything in motion? Louis Leterrier, the director who pushed him from rising star to a survival story. This was never a movie. It was an initiation, a hazing ritual disguised as a film set. Louis Leterrier didn't just want to direct Jason Statham, he needed to break him, to see if the raw material was strong enough. The budget on the transporter was painfully small. So small, the production couldn't afford proper stunt teams. So small, every dangerous sequence came down to one rule. If the camera's rolling, Jason's doing it. No doubles, no safety net, no room for error. Just a former diver and a director with everything to prove. The first battle was over the bus jump. Leterrier demanded that Statham do it himself. The margin for error was 0. A miscalculation meant a broken back, a career over before it began. Statham did it, but he never forgot the gamble. It was a warning. Then came the oil. The infamous fight scene was a death trap. Slippery floors, real impacts. Leterrier pushed for take after take. He wasn't chasing a performance, he was testing endurance. Statham's body became a canvas of bruises, a testament to the director's relentless pursuit of a gritty truth. But the real war was psychological. Leterrier hammered him, take after take, scene after scene. He refused to let Statham find comfort. He forced the cold but charming killer persona out through sheer force of will. It was a brutal process of creation. A star was being forged in the crucible of another man's ambition. Statham survived. He delivered the performance, but a line had been crossed. A precedent was set. A dangerous lesson was learned about what directors would demand, about what they would risk. He walked away from the transporter a star, but he also walked away with a deep, quiet understanding. He had won the battle, but the war for his own body and career was just beginning. And the next director wouldn't try to break his spirit, he would try to break his bones. Paul W.S. Anderson didn't see an actor, he saw a component, a piece of machinery for his brutal, practical vision. Death Race was not a film, it was an assembly line of violence, and Jason Statham was its most critical and most disposable part. The mandate was simple, no CGI, no tricks, just metal, gasoline, and flesh. Anderson demanded authenticity, he got collateral damage. Statham was placed inside real cars for real crashes. The explosions were practical, the impacts were genuine. This was not filmmaking, it was endurance testing. The crew watched in silence, day after day. They saw the cuts, the fresh bruises over old ones, a constant cycle of pain. Statham was not acting exhausted, he was being drained, systematically. Anderson's relentless pace was a calculated strategy to wear down, to erode. Statham later called it one of the toughest physical experiences of his life. That was not an anecdote, it was a testimony from a survivor. He was a human shock absorber, taking the brutal impact of Anderson's uncompromising style. He became a ghost on his own set, a shell of pure fatigue moving from one punishing sequence to the next. The director had achieved his gritty, realistic look, but the cost was the man at the center of it all. Statham emerged from the wreckage. He had survived the machine, but he was left hollowed out. a testament to what happens when a director values realism over humanity. He had now faced two different kinds of war, one for his mind, one for his body. But he was about to face the most dangerous conflict of all, a war disguised as brotherhood. Sylvester Stallone offered a hand, not as a director, as a legend. He promised a brotherhood, a reunion of icons. For Jason Statham, it was the ultimate validation, an invitation to sit at the table of the gods. It was a lie. The Expendables set wasn't a family, it was a gladiator academy, and Stallone, as director, was the master of ceremonies, demanding the most brutal proofs of loyalty. His obsession wasn't with making a movie, it was with proving they were all still real, still hard. The first test was the truck. The script called for a plunge, a simple stunt, but the brakes failed, the vehicle sank, fast. Statham, strapped inside, was dragged down into the cold, dark silence. This was no accident. It was the direct result of a culture that prized spectacle over safety, a near-fatal failure. His old life, his diver's training, saved him. The irony was cruel. But Stallone wasn't finished. He demanded full-contact combat, real hits, real consequences. He wore his own broken neck like a badge of honor, a silent command for everyone else to suffer equally. Statham absorbed the punishment, the back injuries, the joint damage, the concussions. These were not movie injuries, they were permanent souvenirs from a war he didn't know he was fighting. The trust was broken. The brotherhood was a myth, a facade for a director's dangerous ego. Stallone had not been a mentor, he had been a commander willing to sacrifice his own troops for the sake of his mission. Statham walked away from the set a broken man, not in spirit, but in body. He had survived the betrayal. But the greatest injury wasn't physical, it was the chilling realization that in Hollywood, your friends can be more dangerous than your enemies. The industry expected a ghost, a battered relic from a bygone era of action. They had tried to break him, 3 directors, 3 wars. They left him with a roadmap of scars and a lesson written in pain. He learned it. He learned that in this town, you are either a pawn or a player, a weapon used by others or the hand that holds it. Statham chose to become the hand. He turned his back on the system. He built his own. While the franchises fought their petty wars over ego and screen time, he went to work, quietly, relentlessly. The Meg, The Beekeeper, these weren't just movies, they were declarations of independence. They were proof that the audience didn't want a superhero in spandex, they wanted a professional in a suit, a man who gets the job done. He became a ghost all right, but not the kind they expected. He became a silent force, an unstoppable equation, the one variable the studio machines could not control. He was no longer fighting for a place at their table, he owned the restaurant. The feuds were over. Leterrier, Anderson, Stallone. They became footnotes in the story they tried to write for him. He took their lessons, the pain, the endurance, the betrayal, and forged them into an empire. Jason Statham was never broken, he was sharpened. And in the end, the last true action star standing wasn't the loudest one on set, it was the quietest man in the room. If you have a taste for the real stories Hollywood tries to bury, the feuds, the betrayals, the secrets behind the stunts, you know what to do. The truth is waiting just behind the subscribe button. We'll see you in the next shadow.